There is a quiet force in the universe, ancient, invisible, and immeasurable, that shapes our reality not by brute strength, but by belief. Imagine waking each morning not as a victim of circumstance, but as the author of destiny. You rise not asking, "What will go wrong today?" but declaring, "Everything conspires in my favor." Some may call it delusion, but I ask you this. What if faith in the unseen is not foolishness, but the deepest kind of wisdom? To act as if everything always works out for you is not arrogance. It is not ignorance. It is a sacred posture, a reclamation of your birthright as a co-creator with life. Today we journey together into this idea, not as fantasy, but as practical philosophy, one that can reshape your reality from the inside out. Let me take you through 5 truths that will help you live this way, not someday, but starting now. You do not see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. This truth, ancient and quietly enduring, lies beneath the surface of every experience you interpret, every assumption you make, and every story you silently tell yourself. Perception is not merely a passive lens, it is the active sculptor of reality. The world outside bends to meet the world within, and so, to act as if everything always works out for you is not to pretend blindly. It is to engage a different lens, one that aligns the outer landscape with a renewed, empowered inner state. There is a kind of alchemy in perception. When you believe the world is against you, your senses become attuned to evidence of betrayal, failure, and rejection. Your nervous system reacts to shadows. Your posture closes. Your mind sharpens itself not into a tool for creation, but into a shield against disappointment. You become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when you believe, truly believe, that the universe is a partner, a co-creator, and not an adversary, something changes. You no longer brace for pain, you prepare for purpose. You become receptive to nuance, open to opportunities hiding behind chaos, and alive to the signals that were always there, waiting for you to notice. Even modern psychology echoes this ancient truth. At Stanford, a study divided participants into 2 groups, tasked with solving the same set of puzzles. One group was told the puzzles were diagnostic, that they would reflect their intelligence. The other group was told simply to play, to explore. The difference in outcomes was stark. Those under the pressure of evaluation performed worse. Slower, less creatively, more rigidly. But those who approached the task playfully, without fear of judgment, performed better. Why? Because the perception of the task changed their emotional state, which in turn altered their capacity. One group saw a test, the other saw a playground. The task was the same. The world changed because they did. We carry this power daily, we just forget. Consider a woman I once spoke with who truly believed she was cursed with bad luck. Every missed bus confirmed her suspicion. Every breakup became another brick in the wall of a cruel narrative she had inherited and unknowingly kept alive. "Why does this always happen to me?" she'd ask. But there came a moment, a quiet, piercing moment, when I asked her to consider a different story. What if life wasn't punishing her, but teaching her? What if each loss was an initiation, each delay a redirection, and each failure an invitation to awaken to her worth? She didn't change overnight, but she allowed the seed of new perception to be planted, and over time her world shifted, not because life became easier, but because she began to see meaning where there was once only randomness. 2 years later, she stood in a place that had once felt unimaginable, secure in a career she felt called to, married to a man who saw her not for her wounds, but for her wholeness. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was vision. She changed nothing, and yet everything changed. To act as if everything always works out for you is not to deny hardship. It is to interpret hardship differently. When you walk into a storm expecting to be broken, you crumble at the first gust. But when you walk into that same storm with the deep knowing that something within you is being forged, you emerge stronger, wiser, and more complete. This posture isn't wishful thinking. It's a powerful psychological stance. It activates your inner compass to search for order in the midst of chaos. It turns your focus from obstacles to options. And perhaps most importantly, it shifts your emotional frequency, making you more magnetic to people, opportunities, and solutions that resonate with that belief. The truth is, life rarely offers us certainty, but it always offers us the chance to choose our posture. And when you choose to believe that everything is working for your evolution, even when you can't see the full picture, you become an active participant in the unfolding of your destiny. The canvas of life remains the same, but the colors, the texture, and the shape it takes, they all begin to follow the contours of your vision. So what if you chose today to see the world not through the eyes of fear, but through the lens of possibility? What if every misstep were a disguised alignment, every delay a divine recalibration, and every fall a secret invitation to rise higher than you ever imagined? The world you see tomorrow depends entirely on the story you believe today. The path ahead has many faces, but it waits for you to decide who you are when you meet it. Within every human being lies a hidden theater, a sacred stage upon which countless inner characters perform. These are not figments of imagination, but real forces within the psyche, ancient, instinctive, and deeply symbolic. They are the wounded child who longs for safety, the skeptic who distrusts promises, the healer who yearns to mend what was broken, the fool who risks joy without logic, and, most vitally, the hero who dares to act. These figures do not merely exist as roles in our mind, but as energies that, when invoked, shape our choices, responses, and destinies. When you act as if everything always works out for you, you are not playing pretend. You are summoning the hero. The hero is not defined by comfort, nor by the absence of fear. The hero emerges not in ease, but in response to adversity. They are the one who, when the road disappears into wilderness, takes the first step anyway. They are not naive. They know pain. They know loss. But they also know that beyond the suffering something waits that is worth the journey. To live as though life is on your side, even when evidence is scarce, is to embody this very spirit. Myths throughout time echo this pattern. The hero never begins in strength. They begin in ordinary circumstances, or even in despair. But then comes the call. The rupture, the loss, the failure that shatters the known world. And it is here that the hero must choose, collapse into the role of victim, or rise into the unknown, with the faith that the struggle will not be in vain. Consider the tale of the hero who enters the dark forest, not at the well-lit path, but where it is darkest. They do not wait for a sign. They know the path is made by walking. This, too, is our story. The darkness may be heartbreak, job loss, illness, rejection. But to act as if it all works out is to step forward, not with certainty, but with trust. The one who views themselves as a victim often becomes stuck in cycles of blame and powerlessness. When the mind is gripped by victimhood, it scans every event for injustice. It asks, "Why me?" with despair, not curiosity. But the hero reframes the same question. "Why me?" becomes, "What is this teaching me?" Suffering becomes not senseless but meaningful. The struggle becomes not punishment but preparation. This shift in narrative, subtle yet profound, has the power to transform a life. I once spoke with a man who had been laid off after decades of service in a job he once believed would be his forever. He was devastated, furious, and afraid. At first he saw it as betrayal. Life had abandoned him. But with time he began to ask a new question. What if I'm being released, not rejected? That question unlocked something deep within him. He began to study, to explore, to dream again. Within 2 years he had launched a consulting business of his own, serving causes that mattered to him. The layoff had not destroyed him. It had redirected him, and in doing so, it had summoned his hero. To become the hero is not to erase the past or avoid grief. It is to transmute it, to allow every scar to become a source of strength. The hero archetype within us is not born from victory but from endurance. It speaks not in certainty but in courage, and it asks of us only this: to show up again and again as if the universe is not a battlefield but a crucible, a place where fire does not burn you down but burns away what you are not, so you may remember who you truly are. This inner posture changes everything. It does not remove the storms from life, but it gives you the wings to fly through them. And more than that, it changes how others see you. People are drawn to those who carry the energy of the hero, those who act with integrity, purpose, and quiet faith, even in chaos, because in doing so, they remind us of what is possible in ourselves. To act as if everything always works out for you is to step into authorship. It is to refuse the passive script handed down by fear and instead to write your own chapter, not one that denies struggle, but one that insists on meaning. The hero within you is not waiting to be perfect, they are waiting to be chosen. And when you choose them, when you stand up and say, "This too is part of my becoming," you are no longer simply surviving your story, you are creating it. There is a common and persistent illusion that we must first feel ready, confident, or certain before we take action. This belief paralyzes more dreams than failure ever could. People wait for some inner shift before stepping forward, waiting to feel fearless, waiting for clarity, waiting for permission from a mind that rarely gives it. But the psyche is not a spectator. It is not a system that only reacts to emotion or thought. It is a living, evolving field that responds most powerfully to action. When you act as if everything works out for you, you are not engaging in deception or pretending to be something you are not. You are inviting your psyche to rise, to meet the gesture. You are saying, "Even if I do not yet believe it, I am willing to move as if it were true." And the psyche, loyal and attentive, listens closely. It begins to align with the posture you adopt, the tone of your voice, the direction of your gaze. The unconscious does not respond to intellectual debate, it responds to embodiment. This is not some shallow mimicry of success or joy. It is not faking it to impress others or to shield insecurity. No, this is something deeper. It is a sacred form of becoming. When you take the action before the emotion arrives, when you speak truth before confidence appears, when you step into the room before you feel worthy, you are not lying. You are summoning something ancient and true within yourself. You are not building a mask, you are waking up your real face. Studies in psychology now confirm what the soul has always known. At Harvard, researchers found that those who stood in a so-called power pose, open chest, lifted chin, broad stance, for just 2 minutes showed actual changes in hormone levels. Testosterone, associated with confidence and assertiveness, increased. Cortisol, linked to anxiety and stress, decreased. But the most revealing outcome was in behavior. Those individuals became more willing to take risks. Their posture reshaped their biochemistry. The body told the brain, "We are safe, we are strong," and the brain, long trained to react to danger, finally relaxed its grip. This is not magic, it is biology catching up to belief. The body broadcasts messages long before the conscious mind interprets them. The way you stand, the way you walk into a room, the tone of voice you use when you say your own name, these are all declarations to your unconscious. And when you act from a place of dignity, when you move as though life is trustworthy, your psyche gradually accepts that story as truth. So, wake up and dress like someone who expects the best from life. Not out of vanity, but out of respect for your own worth. Speak with a voice that carries the rhythm of self-respect, even if your hands are shaking. Move with the quiet certainty of someone who knows that life unfolds in its own mysterious rhythm, even when you cannot see the path ahead. These are not shallow habits. They are sacred rituals. Each one speaks to the deeper self, saying, "It is time. We are not waiting anymore." So many people wait for the fear to leave before they act. But what they don't realize is that fear often only leaves because they act. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a consequence. It is born in the moment you step forward despite trembling knees, in the second you open your mouth before you know what perfect words to say. Action is the womb in which belief is formed. In myth and in life, transformation begins with a single step, not because the hero felt prepared, but because they moved anyway. The moment you take action aligned with the future you desire, you begin to dissolve the past that held you. You break the spell of inertia. You shift from idea to incarnation. And what's more, the world responds. People feel your presence. Circumstances bend in subtle ways to meet the new vibration you emit. Not always immediately, not always clearly, but steadily, surely the outer world begins to echo the rhythm of your inner one. This is not manipulation, it is resonance. When you walk in the direction of your own wholeness, the path that once seemed invisible begins to appear beneath your feet. The mind will always offer you reasons to delay, but your soul is not interested in waiting. It is interested in movement, in showing up, in aligning the invisible world within with the visible world without. When you act as if everything always works out for you, your psyche listens. And then it begins to believe, and once it believes, it no longer waits. There is a subtle, quiet power that arises not when we grasp, but when we release. Most people live clenched, gripping tightly to outcomes, to expectations, to timelines shaped by fear rather than trust. But control, for all its apparent strength, is often just fear wearing a mask. The paradox is this: the more you try to control life, the more life resists you. The more you insist, the more you feel the weight of resistance. And in this struggle, anxiety is born, not because life is against you, but because you have begun to believe that everything depends on you. To act as if everything works out for you is not to withdraw from life or to adopt a passive stance. It is the opposite. It is to participate with your whole self, to show up fully, to give generously, to create, to speak, to risk, and then to surrender the results. Not because the results don't matter, but because you know they are not entirely yours to control. You are a co-creator in a vast, intelligent unfold. You are not the only hand on the loom. This detachment is not indifference, it is a sacred trust. It is what allows the mind to rest, the heart to remain open, and the soul to breathe. It says, "I will give my all, but I will not bind my worth or my peace to what happens next." It's an inner posture that whispers, "I believe there is more at work here than I can see." Think of the farmer. He does not command the seed to grow on his timeline. He does not dig it up each day in anxious curiosity to check its progress. He does not scream at the sky for rain. He does what he can. Tills the earth, plants the seed, waters with care, and then he waits. He trusts the invisible process. He does not see the roots forming beneath the surface, but he knows they are there. His trust is not based on guarantees, but on an understanding of how life moves. He has seen seasons turn, storms pass, and harvests arrive, and so he works, and then he lets go. This is how we are called to live, not as manipulators of fate, but as devoted participants in a larger rhythm. When you act as if everything works out, you stop gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled fear. You stop listening for direction. You begin to recognize that peace is not found in certainty, but in trust. And trust is not a vague spiritual idea, it is a lived practice, a decision you make over and over again, to let go of what is beyond your reach. Many people carry the belief that if they just worry enough, they can prevent disaster. That if they anticipate every variable, rehearse every outcome, and try hard enough, they can bend the world to their will. But this is an illusion. The mind, in its constant striving to secure the future, forgets that life is not a machine to be controlled, but a mystery to be entered. The root of anxiety is this illusion that you must carry it all, control it all, fix it all. But the truth is far more liberating. You were never meant to do this alone. You are part of something vast, intelligent, and interconnected. Your role is not to manage every detail, but to offer yourself with sincerity and then to trust the unfolding. There is profound strength in this detachment. When you release your obsession with how things must go, you create space for how things could go. You stop forcing and begin allowing. You stop surviving and begin flowing. And in this surrender, you often find that the outcomes you were clinging to were smaller than what life had planned for you. So, live like the farmer. Work with devotion. Pour your care and energy into what you can influence, and then step back. Let the soil do what the soil knows how to do. Let the rain come when it comes. Let time have its way. This is not weakness, this is wisdom. This is how peace is born, not by winning every battle, but by realizing which battles are yours to fight and which are not. When you act as if everything always works out, you step into alignment with this deeper knowing. You remember that you are not just an individual striving in isolation, but a soul dancing in rhythm with a larger force. And in that rhythm, in that dance, you find not just peace, but power. Not the power of force, but the power of trust. There is an unseen thread that weaves through the fabric of reality, something subtle yet undeniably real, that responds not just to what we say or do, but to what we believe. This belief is not a thought you recite to yourself in the mirror. It is not a mantra repeated in the silence of morning. It is deeper, older, more visceral. It is the quiet expectation that hums beneath your actions, the frequency your presence emits long before you speak a word. And it is this belief, held not merely in the mind but in the bones, that gives the world permission to respond to you. When you act as if everything always works out for you, you do not force the world to obey your will. Rather, you begin to resonate with a different truth. You carry yourself not as someone hoping for approval, but as someone who knows they belong. You walk into the room not needing to be chosen, but already chosen by life itself. That shift, subtle to the eyes, thunderous to the unconscious, changes everything. Because people, situations, and opportunities are not drawn merely to your appearance or skill, but to the energy you bring. There is an old saying that doors open for those who knock. But what they rarely tell you is this: the way you knock matters. A hand that trembles with self-doubt may go unnoticed. A knock that carries conviction, that says, "I am ready," echoes with a different tone, and the world, sensitive, attuned, listening, responds in kind. I remember a young man I once mentored who struggled deeply with this. He had ability, intelligence, and even experience, but he did not believe he was worthy of success. Every job interview he entered, he carried that quiet dread with him, a sense of unworthiness that colored everything he said. The interviewers could not name it, but they felt it. And so, time and again, he was rejected. He thought it was fate. He believed he was cursed. But the truth was, he was closing the door before it even opened. I asked him to try something different. Don't go in needing them to choose you. Go in as if they already